Welcome back to Giving Thanks, Tennis Channel's celebration of the very best of our sport. Today we honor 20-time major champion Roger Federer, who alongside his record at the Slams has spent over 300 weeks at world number 1 and ending the year at the top of the rankings 5 times. Roger headed into the 2012 Madrid Masters fresh from claiming a record 4th title at Indian Wells. Tomаш Berdyk stood between Federer and another clay court title. This is the 2012 Madrid Masters final, and yes, the clay is blue. Don't adjust your sets. And thank you for joining us here on Tennis Channel for our final edition of Clay Court Classics. This evening's match features something the likes of which tennis had never seen, a blue clay court, an experiment that took place at the 2012 Mutua Madrid Open. It's our pleasure now to bring you the men's singles final, Roger Federer and Tomаш Berdyk vying to win this precious ATP World Tour Masters 1000 title. Federer on this occasion was trying to win a record equaling 20th Masters 1000 title, but he knew it wasn't going to be easy. Berdyk had beaten him 4 times, including wins at Wimbledon and the Olympics. We take you now to Madrid.
So all sets for the second final of the season on clay at this level. The 4th event as far as the Masters Series 1000s are concerned. Overall, initially, it was the hard courts of North America where we focused our attention. And of course, of late, it's been the clay courts of Europe. Initially, the red clay courts of Monte Carlo, where Tomаш Berdyk was a semi-finalist. Roger Federer didn't play in the Principality. This is his first outing. And of course, it's been on the blue clay here in Madrid. Federer dressed appropriately, winning the toss. Chose the good end as far as the sun's concerned. So it'll be Berdyk to get us underway. We've seen some nice variation from Federer on that backhand win throughout the tournament.
Yeah, and again, it's winning today. So that slice backhand is going to be a very important tool for him. Yesterday, he mixed it up beautifully with the heavy roller off the backhand, just to keep Tipsarevic off balance. Not quite as windy as yesterday, but definitely a bit of breeze out there.
Federer was talking yesterday about the fact that he's always had a lot of support here in Madrid. It was his 8th semi-final at this event yesterday. And of course, he's played a lot of Spanish players down the years, especially Rafael Nadal. And he says, although the Spaniards do tend to support their own, and rightly so, he's always got a nice warm reception here. So I'm sure he'll have plenty of support this afternoon too. See the difficulty Berdyk had there when they tried to slide out to that wide forehand and then recover. It's been a problem for all of the players this week. So I think those that have had the most success have been those with an aggressive mindset, those that play first strike tennis, and also those that don't worry too much about trying to run around their backhand. And both Berdyk and Federer very comfortable not doing that, although of course they certainly can as and when required to do so.
That'll be a very important part of Berdich's game today. He's going to have to serve well. There's Satarova. There's a girlfriend. And they're getting a lot of TV time this week as Esther.
Federer will be a little disappointed there. It was a decent approach, with heavy slice, and the ball does skid through the court here and travels through the air pretty quickly. But Federer didn't have to move too much there. At the very least, he would have expected to have tested Berdick, because he's not a natural volleyer by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but he's competent up there. Competent, more competent than most, should I say. Came up with some good volleys when it really mattered against Del Potro.
No, he did. That's been the main weapon this week. Didn't drop a service game until the semi-finals here.
First game. Al servicio, Roger Federer. Gracias.
That's going to be an important shot, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is the problem if you back away too much. It wasn't that bad from Federer, but still, when somebody opens up the court, very difficult to run down and recover. Even if Federer had got to that shot, there's no ways he would have been able to hang into the rally.
Now, that's been the problem with players that like to run around their backhands, like Nadal. Once they expose the open court, it's been taken advantage of. Wonderful return.
A statement of intent early doors. Nice to see. It's something that Federer so often does when he comes up against his opponents.
That slice serve has been the go-to serve as far as so many players have been concerned this week. Certainly as far as Federer is concerned. Disguise on that, absolutely phenomenal.
Trying to get a little cute there. Looking for the disguise.
Double bluff on the drop shot initially, and then normally the bunt would be down the line, but he tried to go cross court. Made rather a hash of that. So what an opportunity this for Berdick. Oh, what a return. A phenomenal game that from Berdick, and that will help settle the nerves.
Wow, talk about pouncing on second serves. How was that game? Beautiful, no sign of nerves. I was just about to say how important it's going to be just to be able to hang with Federer early on, let alone come out the blocks playing like this.
It just shows you how important it has been all week to have an aggressive state of mind when returning. Those that have been able to gain the upper hand in the rally initially have been well rewarded. Very, very difficult on this court to turn defense into attack. Closer look at that. Good call. Confirmed. No Hawkeye here in an official capacity, of course, this week, just for television purposes.
Yeah, a few people have been asking us about that on Twitter. Why is that the case? Well, that's what the umpire's job is there for, to check the mark. That's supposed to be definitive, but of course sometimes the player and the umpire disagree, so I think it would be the perfect time for Hawkeye to step in and kind of be the ultimate decision.
What a forehand. He loves that shot too. So wristy, so the timing's got to be perfect, but it was there.
And it's a shot he feels confident playing,
30-0.
despite
30 love.
the toughness of it.
What a start.
$40, 40 love.
Using that backhand down the line exceptionally well so far. He's put Federer under an awful lot of pressure in the opening 3 games here. It's got off to a flyer.
Well, we've got a very interesting Twitter question for you, given that Federer's down 3-love. I think it's appropriate. Federer's lost 10 of 12 clay court finals to Nadal. The question I want to know from you is, who did he lose the other 2 against?
That's an excellent question.
And you can let me know on my Twitter account, Rob Koenig Tennis.
It's such a good question as well, because all of the recent finals have obviously been against Nadal. So you're going to have to dig deep into the recesses of your mind. It's a tough one. I've got one of them, but I'm still thinking about the other one.
Yeah, no Google. Come on, stretch yourselves a little bit. Don't go straight to the computer. Federer's lost 10 of 12 clay court finals to Nadal. We want to know, who did he lose the other 2 against? So get the minds thinking.
Yeah, shame on you if you start using a computer there.
30-0, 30 love. Let servicio.
Very tentative shot that was.
30-15.
His record generally in finals, of course, absolutely outstanding. He's
30-15.
won 73 titles in 103 finals coming into today's match. 19 of 32 at this level.
Iguales.
Royalty in the house this afternoon. Of course, should have dearly loved to have been watching the King of Clay this afternoon. But, no chance of that. Nadal now putting in his time on the practice courts in Rome. It's good serve.
40-30, 40-30. Federer.
Nice to get the scoreboard working in your favour eventually.
Berdish gana 3-1, 3 games to 1.
He won't be panicking as yet.
Zero, 15, love 15. Please.
What a shot.
Blistering forehand. And as soon as he takes off for this, he knows it has to be a winner. But of course, he loves his forehand cross-court. So he's feeling comfortable, even though he's on the full stretch. What an angle.
Well, the depth initially there was what caused Federer to drop the ball short. Lovely combination of shots from Berdych.
30-15, 30-15.
That's been a problem for Federer throughout the final so far. A lot of those ground strokes dropping a little too short. It's allowed Berdych to take the upper hand in many of the rallies. What a serve. That's another tactic that's worked well this week. Into the body, skidding a little bit on the court, through the air nice and quickly. Given the altitude, players haven't had time to get out of the way of the ball.
I tell you, that's not a tennis racket in his hand at the moment. It's more like a club. He's absolutely pulverizing the ball. Almost took Federer out with that serve.
Juego. Berdish.
Seemingly in complete control of this opening set. Couldn't have wished for a better start. The Birdman is flying high, 4-1. Jason Goodall alongside Robbie Koenig. It's finals day here at the Mutua Madrid Open.
Time.
What a start. The underdog, really, in this match. Thomas Berdych's concerns. In his wildest dreams, I don't think he would have believed that he would have been able to lead 4-1. Now, can he make the most of it? It's still just the one break, though, so Federer won't be panicking just yet.
Well, we asked you a question a little earlier of the 12 clay court finals that Federer has lost. 10 of them were to Nadal. We wanted to know who the other two guys were. And some of you had to dig deep. It's good to see it didn't come straight away. But it was difficult. You got to go back to Gstaad in 2003, of course, where he lost to Yuri Novak. And the same year, he lost in Rome to
Felix Mantilla.
That's right.
Cat.
You picked the Novak one, which was a good dig. You gave us the scoreline on air. Not on air, sorry, on talkback, which was a good effort, Chase. Jinka Biloba certainly helping with the memory, isn't it?
It's a long, long time ago, isn't it? 2003. So it's an exclusive club. Berdych's attempting to join this afternoon.
Federer.
Nice quick hold there. That always helps. Time for a new bat just before the new balls are introduced after 7 games. From Federer there to stay in the rally. He's finding it hard, particularly at that end. Just slightly against the wind.
15-0, 15 love. Iguales, 15.
He's been exceptionally miserly so far as unforced errors are concerned. That's only his second. Nice ratio of winners to cheap points gifted away so far. Done.
And that'll be a real confidence builder for him, because we've talked about the fact that he likes to hook it cross court, hit the inside in forehand. We've seen him hit that one well already, so the fact that he's hitting the inside out one as effectively, well, that spread is just brilliant. It's way too much for Federer to track it down. He has to pick a side, he has to guess, and once he starts guessing, it's, you know when you got him.
There it is again.
Because I'm sure Federer's done his homework, and he'll know that Berdych likes to pull the forehand cross-court, so again here,
40-15,
he's leaning to the
14-15.
forehand side. It's already double digits as far as winners are concerned for Tomаш.
He's looking supremely confident. Couldn't be striking the ball any better. And he's just a game away now from wrapping up this opening set. It's been an exceptionally good start. And of course, he's got the balance absolutely right between putting Federer under just enough pressure to be able to open up the court, and then, of course, pulling the trigger at the appropriate moment. The winners there, those red balls, forehands inside out that we saw in the last game, accompanied by the forehands cross court, a couple of backhands down the line as well. Very few balls, generally speaking, in the middle of the course, so it's good stuff.
And let's not forget there's been one or two inside-in forehands as well, so he's really hit his spots beautifully.
So, better work for Federer to do if he's to get anything out of this opening set. A bad bounce there, and of course that's the most interesting talking point this week. Manolo Santana, the tournament director, said that because remember a couple of years ago on match point the same thing happened. Federer went for a big forehand, the ball skipped up over his racket. Manolo said that that was one of the reasons why they really worked very, very hard at trying to compact this court as much as they possibly can, but that's what's made it too slippery. So he held his hands up early this week, said it's down to him.
Oh, such an intelligent shot. In order to create the angle, he knew he couldn't hit it with a lot of pace. So took a lot of pace off it, a lot more spin.
15-30.
It's beautiful.
He's used that serve well this week too, that big kick up. Haven't seen a lot of it today though, not yet. Oh, and maybe that's because he's wary of just how well Berdych's been hitting his backhand.
Tell you what, this is so clean.
15-40.
That was Federer like half volley winner. I mean, it was literally half a meter away from Roger, but it was struck so hard and so early.
2 set points.
Trenta, 40, 30-40.
Two hammer blows just in the nick of time.
Iguales, deuce.
And another.
Advantage, Federer.
Good response. He's given himself a fighting chance here.
Berdish gana 5-3. 5 games to
This is where
break.
experience will be so important right now. I'm going to ask you about it after this game, depending on what happens. Maybe it's even worth discussing during the game. And I guess that the question is how much experience do you need before it's enough, before it is really meaningful?
That's terrific tennis. And the perfect start to such an important game for Federer.
It certainly is. You've got to bear in mind, he missed a first serve again. He's serving below 50% now, and you wonder when it's going to catch up with him. And I think at a 10 stage like this that we see in the opening set, it certainly could come back to bite him in the butt. And why I'm asking that question is obviously he's lost a couple of big matches. The finals of the Wimbledon, he was a little nervous there. We spoke about Miami. When does that become enough? And you say, okay, enough is enough. It's time to bear down now. It's not going to bother me because I really want to win. And you get your mind organized. How many times do you think that has to happen? Or is there a set number?
No, there isn't, is there? That's the point. That's the beauty of sport. Just ask Andy Murray. See, that's the problem. We talked about it earlier. If you do run around your backhand on this court and you don't hit a great shot, then you're always exposed.
15 iguales.
I didn't need to run around that one.
15.
And of course, it's playing straight into Berdych strength, as we've mentioned on a couple of occasions. Perhaps if Roger is going to do anything meaningful, you know, go back cross court to the backhand, inside out. I mean,
still can't buy a first serve. It's fantastic backhands there, and I love the attitude. It was courageous tennis.
a wonderful mindset. So easy for him to get tentative after losing that opening point. But,
30-15,
he's feeling very good
30-15.
himself. Complete control of the emotions. I was watching him carefully during that change of ends before he came out to serve. Seemed really focused, no looking around. Had that glazed stare in his eye.
That's a brilliant backhand. He's only made one of his last 7 first serves. So he's giving Federer plenty of looks at the second. But so far in the match, he's defended it relatively well.
Iguales.
Won 71% of those serves. That's 10 of 14, folks, in this match.
It's highly unusual because normally Federer will bear down on opponents when he gets the opportunity to attack their second serves. Missed by a country mile, that one. But what a good second serve again, and then more courageous tennis from the baseline.
40-30.
Just trying to get the heart rate down now. Third set point, but of course this the first on his own serve. It's good stuff. He did indeed hold his nerve at the tail end of that opening set in order to hold serve and get the job done.
6-3.
He's a little closer to getting his hands on that trophy now. A set to the goods, 6-3 in 36 minutes.
On on Tennis Channel and Clay Court Classics, you're watching Roger Federer versus Tomas Berdik grinding away on blue clay in the 2012 Tennis Masters Madrid final. Federer at this point hadn't played a tournament in more than a month, and it was also his first clay court tournament of 2012. Let's now get you back to the tennis.
Por favor, los jugadores están preparados. Segunda set.
So the court's been watered, so we're good to go. Beginning of the second set.
Gracias.
Fascinating to see if there's a response from Federer. We're all certainly expecting one, that's for sure.
15-0.
There's Carlos Moya. Works, I think he's an ambassador for this particular event, maybe a player liaison role as well. A lot of the events have now. Probably picked the wrong tournament for that role this year.
I want to follow up on that. Speaking about an ambassador. You know, for me, he's the perfect kind of guy who should be testing out the court, isn't he? Because the feedback he would give would be probably as good as any player, certainly any top player. So if you are an ambassador, surely that should be part of your role, you would think.
If you're doing your job properly, couldn't agree more. And that's the one thing that's blown my mind this week, the fact that, you know, they didn't have a test facility elsewhere. So they're relying on, you know, boffins telling you that the blue court is going to play exactly the same as a red court. You've got to get one down, laid, and tested.
Of course, what happens in the lab doesn't always happen in reality.
Yeah, a lot of stuff looks good on paper.
40, 30, 30.
It didn't need to be that good as well.
You remember right back to the beginning of the match, the shot that didn't totally cost him the service game, but certainly put him in trouble, was the fake drop shot, forehand slice error, wasn't it?
Yep. I think it was at 30 all.
To give Berdik break point, yeah. And he took it.
Ventaja Federer. Juego Federer. Primera juego, segunda set. First game, second set.
That's an excellent start.
Saw him serve volley a lot against Raonic, did Federer. But perhaps something that might scare him off is the quality of the returning of Berdik is a lot better in my mind than the Canadian.
Team Wallace, 15 all.
It's a good little pass, that's nicely weighted shot.
Beautiful.
15, 30.
Stays in nice and low on the shot, abbreviated follow through. He's just looking for more brush up the back of the ball. There was Federer. It was all about the angle. Wasn't about the pace. Using the pace of the oncoming shot.
Well, the second serve's been outstanding today. It's incredible, really, that Federer hasn't really got close to breaking. Berdych's only made 2 of his last 10 first serves. And that second sometimes can be a little bit of an Achilles heel as far as he's concerned, but not today. He's defended it so well. 13 of 18 points. Federer, on the other hand, has only won 2 of 8. Normally, at the end of the season, his second serve is the most effective in terms of points won. It's normally around about the 58, 59% mark. Today, of course, languishing at 25%. Still can't find a first serve. What a chance here for Federer. Well, Federer got a little lucky initially when the return just clipped the top of the net, but there was nothing lucky about that final forehand.
And he hits this one very sweetly. And again, didn't try and hit it too hard. It was all about creating the angle and hitting around Berdych. Head so still. Such a clean strike.
Federer right back in the match now.
This is where Federer is so good. You just expect a quick hold here. You almost know what's going to happen. All the pressure right back on Berdych.
It's one of the few times Berdych wasn't able to be aggressive with the return there.
It's interesting to me there. Again, Federer taking more pace off the ball. And for the heavy spin there, trying to create more of an angle, not going toe-to-toe with Berdych. I think Berdych has been using his pace very effectively.
Because that's been a feature of Federer's game this week, the use of the slice backhand, the kick serve as a first serve. It's been tough for opponents to find any kind of rhythm at all. A little slower that first serve as well. So some intelligent stuff from Federer in response to the loss of the opening set. His quick holds, as Federer leads 3-love. Of course, both players will be playing in Rome next week as well. Berdych seeded 7 as a bye in the first round, plays either Lukas Kubot from Poland or Petito Starace local favourite, of course, from Italy, who's got a wild card into the event next week. Federer's seeded 3 again. But of course, if he wins this afternoon, he'll be the new world #2. And he's received a bye in the first round as well, and will play a qualifier or Carlos Berloc from Argentina. But of course, one of the most interesting matches there is between Milos Raonic and Florian Mayer in the first round. If Raonic wins that match, he will play Nadal in the second round. So what a matchup that promises to be if Raonic can play as well as he did this week when he narrowly lost to Federer 7-6 in the deciding set in Federer's first match. A little bit of a let-off for Berdych there. Always nice when you can hold serve comfortably when you're in a difficult situation.
Federer free game stua. 3-1. It's 15 down.
Such a good return. It's the advantage of having a double-handed backhand. You've got a bit of additional control over the shot. 2 hands on the frame, you can just steady it a little bit. Sometimes with the one hand, it's not as easy to do.
Trenta, 15.
Federer in full flow at serve. He's been outstanding here. Set number 2. He's made 88% of the first serves, 7 of 8.
Read the serve well that time. Strange there was no response there from Federer. Perhaps he was anticipating the cross-court return.
40-30.
Such a good shot that. He had time to get set up, so it was always on.
Yeah, and it's a shot that Federer hits so well himself. Think of the guys on the tour Certainly these two are the best at hitting that particular shot as far as righties are concerned. Nadal does a very good job as a lefty with that same kind of shot.
That's another brilliant return. He's had a rich vein of form in this game.
Berdych.
He's got a chance now to get back on serve in this second set. What a response.
How often this week have we seen Federer produce the goods when he's down break point? We saw it against Raonic. How many aces he's able to hit. Seen it time and time again throughout the course of his career.
Servicio.
It's interesting that when you see him change direction, they're having to go up the line. It was a bad miss. It's not a shot that he likes to play all that often. I think that's why he's upset with himself. It's because of the shot selection.
Giving Berdych a taste of his own medicine there. That's a crucial hold, that. A 4-1 now, Federer leads. A little bit of a delay after the first 5 games in each set, whilst the groundsmen are hard at work, trying to make the court just a little less slippery. It's been a problem all week here, but it was interesting when listening to the press conference that Manolo Santana and Jan Tiriac gave earlier today, just before the final, and they said unequivocally that the fact that the court was blue had no bearing on the fact that it was slippery. So they were 100% confident that if they overcome the problems in terms of the slipperiness of the court, that it being blue won't be a problem. In other words, they could prepare a perfect blue clay court. It's just that they haven't done that this week.
It's been a problem for Berdych. That first serve has been on the slide. He just got away with it in the opening set. But Federer is not letting him get away with it here in set number 2.
What a glorious return of serve. And it's all timing. Just so nonchalant there, the swing at the ball. Like all great players, looks like they're hardly trying. First return winner for Federer. He's just missed it and should have made it. It was very, very close. And Berdych wants Mohammed just to go down and double check the mark, but he said it was definitely long, and he's absolutely right.
Well, it's interesting when he's walking up there saying easy, easy, because he's seen the mark, but he's missed a double bounce earlier. And
plus you want to go there with an open mind, don't you, to the ball mark? Just to make sure?
Always. Rather be a little overcautious than try to be too bold.
Federer's done an excellent job of turning this match around. All of a sudden it's become exceptionally difficult for Berdych to win games when he was very much on top throughout the course of the opening set.
Ventaja Federer.
Posted some good numbers so far. And he's got an opportunity to break. He'd like to keep that 100% record intact here. Beautifully done.
Deuce. Ventaja Berlich.
I think this will be an important set in the grand scheme of things, even if it does go to 3, Jason, that he doesn't get blown away. Gets broken here, loses the set 6-1. You know, could be a bit of psychological scoring.
Got away with it. Should have done a little more with the backhand volley there. Gave Federer a second bite at the cherry, which isn't always advisable. But it gets the hold, nevertheless. Still the one break separating the two.
So you hear where I'm coming from, whereas if he loses a set, perhaps just with the one break, he'll probably feel a lot better about himself going into the third set.
Yeah, and Federer doesn't have as much momentum working in his favour.
Service.
It's one of his favourite shots.
Zero 15, love 15. Iguales, 15 all.
Always got to be alert. The most expensive seats, just in case. Always liable to happen. Sometimes there is a tendency just to force that shot on this particular court, because you know if you don't hit it perfectly, if you don't do enough with it, that lack of mobility on this slippery court is going to be exposed. It's another really good serve. So, at almost 80% first serves in this set. Beautifully done. Again, controlled aggression throughout the course of that rally. Eventually outmaneuvering Berdych. So Federer now with a 5-2 lead, second set. Will Smith taking a bow. He's there with his wife, Jada.
Did he stand up there a little longer than what was required, just so the cameras caught him?
Actors would never do that, would they? Basking in the limelight, making the most of the free publicity. Men in Black 3, of course, premiering this evening in the second stadium court here. That's why, incidentally, one of the quarterfinals on Friday was played over on court 3 here, Stadium 3, because these arenas can be used for various things throughout the course of the year. Rock concerts, film premieres, all sorts. Tennis very much taking centre stage this afternoon here on Manolo Santana, though. Berdych with the opening set, 6-3. But a lot of work to do here in the second, trailing 2-5.
Zero 15 love. Zero 30 love. 0, 40 love. Berdish.
Let's see if Federer can follow in his footsteps.
Good start to this all-important game as far as Federer is concerned. And close things out. But here's the one-strike tennis that we've been talking about that's been so successful this week. Can't think of too many rallies that have gone over 10 shots in this encounter.
And I'm thinking 2 or 3 tops, maybe a handful at a push. In fact, only 4 in total, and of each one 2 apiece, courtesy of Steph Trudell, best in the business. He's just made it. Berdic is saying, I can't make a decision there, which usually means it's in. And Mohamed Orhani agrees.
Oh, dear. What a shot from Federer.
A couple of mil, most. That's all that's required. And the ball touches the line.
As I said, there's a fine line between genius and stupidity.
Yeah, you missed that shot, and it's a rash one. That's an aggressive serve, that.
30 iguales. 30.
Federer still 2 points away. On this course, it's doubly difficult, given you don't have really good footing. But make sure you hit an aggressive shot. It's nothing really on that. And it's not like Berdic's forehand is an awful lot better than the backhand, so poor decision making there. Terrific hustle from Berdic.
This one just low enough so that Federer couldn't be aggressive.
Iguales, deuce.
The longest rally of the match, that one. Both players covering a fair bit of court.
13 shots in total. This is certainly no Australian Open final. All sorts of bad bounces there and balls skidding off lines and shanks.
Exactly. And Federer just pointing to a mark there that he thought was a little long midway through the rally.
Of course, choosing not to stop the rally. Had he done so, could have asked the umpire to come down.
It's so difficult to do that given the magnitude of the situation.
Virtually impossible unless you're 100% sure. What a chance here for Berdych. Phenomenal. What a return, because it was a fantastic serve of Federer's, and then what a dig to get back in the rally. It's so tough to turn defence into attack on this court, and Berdych does it there with considerable aplomb to get back on serve. All sorts of entertainment available in the Magic Box this afternoon. There's Josh Brolin, who's also in Men in Black, beside Will Smith. Of course, it used to be Tommy Lee Jones, didn't it? But he's a little old for the role now, so they've reprised Josh Brolin in it, I think, this time around. Not that I'm a big fan of the Men in Black franchise. But they have shown the trailer a fair few times this week on the big screens there. Nice to have celebrities courtside. Plenty of famous footballers here this week as well from Real Madrid. But the stars of the show are definitely the tennis players, no question about that. Berdych's done well in this second set to get back on serve. But still got a little bit of work to do. Needs to hold here to draw level.
He's catching here as well, both here. Yeah.
Suggesting that it was actually hitting both lines there.
Zero, 15 down. Enter 0, 30 love. Zero, 40 love.
Oh, that's sensational. Such a difficult shot with the one hand.
And the timing has got to be exquisite. Especially when you hit across the ball.
40, 50.
It's so easy to lose control of it. But Federer faded that one beautifully.
Just low enough again to cause Berdych problems. Just didn't open the racket face enough on the volley. If you can get it nice and low, and it's difficult for players that don't volley naturally. Try to do a little too much with that one. Good length on that recovery shot from Berdych. It's so hard to continually half volley the ball on a clay court. You could see Federer there just smoothing out the court, because of course that one just deviated a little bit when it bounced, and that can often happen when the court gets a little chewed up, all the footwork.
That's what makes the style that Federer plays so incredible. That he's able to do it so effectively so often. We take it for granted. So often he does make the fine adjustments, but every now and then he gets caught out.
15 love.
That's when he mishits the ball.
Zero, 30 love.
Well, this is a good game because Berdych would have been breathing a sigh of relief, having drawn level at 5-all. And of course, Federer will want to immediately put as much pressure as possible back on his shoulder. So a nice quick service game here. Exactly what he wants.
Federer.
Didn't take long, did it? 69 seconds.
Federer gana 6-5,
Federer leads 6-5. Jason, you're alongside Robbie Koenig. It's finals day in the Mutua Madrid Open. There'll be so many talking points this week. What with the blue court and the slipperiness of it. One or two players hell-bent on complaining rather than trying to play their best tennis. But these two have really knuckled down. Played some really good stuff all week. Thoroughly deserve their place in the final. Berdych started exceptionally well, taking the opening set, one break of serve enough to separate the two. Of course, Federer was a break up here in a second, if you weren't with us earlier. But now we're back on serve. Here's Berdych, 5-6.
service.
A little bit more room for himself there. Just couldn't get the feet out of the way quick enough. There's Esther Satarova, Berdych's girlfriend.
Again, you're making life difficult for yourself there because there's an awful lot of movement before you actually make contact with the ball. Might have been better advised just to hit a backhand there, given the court surface.
Beautiful return from Federer. He's so good at hitting that chip. And of course, it stays nice and low, so it's very difficult to be aggressive with this approach shot.
And crucially, Federer not trying to hit that pass too hard. Look at the height over the net. The trajectory of the shot, high percentage play, plenty of spin on there. Mistake a lot of players make is when they're going for passing shots, they're trying to hit it too hard, too flat. That's a good recovery.
Quince, 30, 15, 30.
What a return.
Pounced on it, didn't he?
Berdych can't believe the bounce, but the timing on the return was so sweet. And of course, if you get the ball deep on a clay court, you've always got a chance, especially if it clips the line. It's definitely going to deviate one way or the other. It's going to skid a little bit, stay low or bounce up. Still skidding off to the left there. No chance at all for Berdych. So the end result is Federer has 2 set points here. Well, Federer timing his push to perfection there, winning 10 of the last 12 points to wrap the set up. 7 games to 5. 1 set apiece. We're going the distance.
Here on Tennis Channel, it's evening 4 of Clay Court Classics. Roger Federer and Tomas Berdik in the finals of the 2012 Tennis Masters Madrid tournament. Berdik was playing superb tennis, along the way taking out Fernando Verdasco and Juan Martín del Potro. Back now to Madrid.
Court's almost ready. Play to recommence.
Time.
It's a third deciding set.
Gracias.
We talked about the difference in the experience that these two players had to draw upon at this level. Federer appearing in his 104th final this afternoon, his 32nd Masters Series 1000 final. Of course, he's won 19 of those. Berdyk's only played in 2 Masters Series 1000 finals previously. He's won 1 of those. He's only had 7 wins in his 13 finals overall. So it'll be interesting to see whether that additional experience that Federer has comes to the fore in this deciding set.
Love 15.
If you weren't with us at the start of the match, Berdik came out of the blocks firing. Returned exceptionally well in Federer's opening service game. Broke early on, a couple of clean winners.
How do you see this third set playing?
I'm thinking it's going to go down to the wire, but Roger's going to squeak it out.
Going with the experience.
I am.
Normally it's the case that if the underdog is going to prevail, he needs to do it sooner rather than later. And the longer the match goes on, the more advantageous it becomes for the player with the most experience. Nice hands there on the forehand.
And I think the big thing that experience gives you is you don't panic in difficult situations. I think it's so important. Oh, he went for it.
And why not?
Because he's hit so many good ones. So you're exactly right.
Deuce.
You know, at least you want to be in control of your own destiny. Oh.
Ventaja. Federer.
Federer taking a close look at where that one bounced, but it was definitely good.
Iguales.
Good couple of forehands from Berdych. And I think it's so important that he manages his forehand well.
Ventaja Federer. Juego Federer.
What a crucial hold there. Managing to fend off 2 great points along the way. Now leads 1-love, third set. He's got options here. That return up the middle of the court can be dealt with either that shot or the one inside out, but he prefers that one. Most players prefer to go the other way. What a lovely shot that was.
It was one of those tantalizing ones because he didn't hit it hard. He had a little bit of float on it as well. It wasn't one of those backhands where he knifes it. Berdych just had to stand and watch because he was on his skates going the other way.
Appreciating the subtlety involved there.
Iguales. 30.
Showing us he does have the variety. Managed to fall in well at the start of this third set. Another winner.
30. Berdish. Wallace, 1 game over.
Oh, yes. And sometimes you can smother that forehand. But, this week, he's been hitting it so well. Just enough spin on there, but it's still relatively low over the net. It's an aggressive shot, 160k. It's good pace.
La 30.
So Federer in desperate need here for a couple of decent first serves.
Quinze. 30, 15, 30. Frente iguales.
So cool, calm and collected when he knows he has to make the first serve. Double figures now as far as the aces are concerned. Oh, so good to be able to find that kind of angle when you're hitting at that kind of pace. Deadly combination.
Oh, we've seen so many good shots already in this match, and shots like this are worth the admission fee on their own. What preparation, what power he possesses.
Iguales, deuce.
Again, there, no panic from Federer. Didn't try and go for the quick fix. Went for the change-up.
What a great smash. That's precisely where I put the targets when I'm out there coaching. Trying to create that angle, not trying to go hard and deep, just using that subtle flick of the wrist, pronating the forearm to get the ball down into the court. Trouble is, my guys can't hit it as good as that.
I was just about to say, you're a hard taskmaster, because that wasn't an easy smash. You've got to be pretty good to hit those targets.
Federer.
Lots of good holes. Both guys have had chances. Especially Berdych, 33 great points in this deciding set. But we're still on serve, 2-1. We've got royalty courtside, and we've got Hollywood royalty courtside as well. Good talent for the premiere of Men in Black at 3. Josh Brolin's in it as well. Plays a younger Tommy Lee Jones, doesn't he, when Will Smith goes back in time. Kevin Skinner, I think, keeping us on our toes with that. He's into all that dross. That's it.
Skinmeister. He's a movie aficionado, is Kev. Chilling out in South Beach watching this. Weather here, very much South Beach-like.
Certainly is. No breaks in this deciding set as yet. 1-2.
It's 0, 15 love. Trenta, 0, 30 love. Quarenta, 0, 40 love.
Josh Brolin certainly appreciates 15 stars on display this afternoon. It's a good actor, Josh. One of your faves, Rob? You're umming and ahhing there. I can sense it.
I don't know him that well.
No, you don't, do
you?
you?
I'm not a movie aficionado like you.
Okay.
Wow.
Trouble is, he wasn't in Finding Nemo, was he?
Exactly, I was just about to say CBBS. Disney Junior, you can ask me anything about that.
40, 30.
That'll keep Luke and Grace locked down for a while.
That's always good.
Bit of reprieve.
Nicely done.
Did so well because he knew that the backhand slice of Federer was going to be short, so he was quick to move up the court, which meant that he could take the ball at the pinnacle of the bounce and be a little more aggressive with his backhand cross court. So it's why it's so important to anticipate the shot.
At what stage, because we've talked a lot about experience, we've talked a lot about getting a little nervous when it really matters. Berdych does have a reputation for doing just that. At what stage in a deciding set of a match of this magnitude will a player start to feel really nervous and start thinking about the outcome?
I think in 7th game. You know, once you start getting past that halfway mark, so saying 3-all, when you step up to serve, then that's when you start thinking about it. And I'd say perhaps Berdych would start sooner than Federer. Federer might only start thinking about it, you know, when he arrives at 5-all, 6-all. Because everybody feels pressure. It's just how you handle it. The greatest players in any sport will tell you that. I'll tell you exactly what I just told you. It's all about managing your emotional level.
Yep.
Knew exactly where that serve had bounced, so he was quick to let the umpire know.
Correction was good.
Yeah, I mean, that looked miles in.
0-30. Love 30.
Surely that was inside the line. I mean, that was a crazy call. What happened there?
He's got his money on Federer.
He has, hasn't he? He just couldn't take it anymore. So, cat's out of the bag now, mate. Didn't he handle that scenario well? Again, no sign of panic.
30, 15-30.
He's not out of the woods yet.
Iguales. 30 on.
Both players just quietly going about their business now, waiting for an opportunity, taking care of business on their own deals.
Juego Federer.
Federer does have the advantage of serving first in this deciding set. Can he make it count? 3-2. So again, just a little bit of a delay there as they swept the court, watered it again. Something that they adjusted halfway through the tournament here. Normally that just happens at the end of sets in regular clay court events because the players were struggling with their footing. The tournament committee deciding that they would do it after the first 5 games of each set, irrespective of the scoreline. Try and make the playing surface just a little better for the players so that they'd be able to move just a little better. It certainly helps, but of course it does delay the game a little bit more than normal. By this stage in the week they're pretty used to it, but sometimes when they put a little too much water on there, It means that they've got to come back out, as they are doing here, to re-sweep it, just to take up any additional moisture off the top surface. A while, 3.5 minutes now. There's usually a good 5 minutes or so in between sets. Two, three.
It's 0, 15 love. Iguales. 15 on. Trenta, 15, 30, 15.
Good depth. It's so difficult to just stand your ground, take the ball on the rise on a clay court, especially here in Madrid, controlling the ball.
40,
More difficult than it is at sea level.
Just in that back corner there, there's still a little bit of sunshine, so the ball's going from the shade into the sun.
3 iguales. 3 games on.
It's never easy. It won't be there for long. Give it another 5 minutes or so. Playing conditions will be perfect, relatively speaking. So here's the vital 7th game.
It's 0, 15 down.
What a recovery.
It's jaw-dropping good, isn't it? Because you think Berdych is in complete control at this point here. He's got Federer on the run.
30-0. 30 love.
That ball just accelerates away from Berdick.
Berdick didn't even move there. Didn't get a lead on that at all. He's created some wonderful angles in this game. Federer with the height over the net there. That was a good adjustment because I don't think it was a perfect bounce, and then just flattening out that final forehand.
Best forehand ever.
Only just.
40-15, 40-15.
Superb stuff from Federer, opening up the court wonderfully well with the serve. Berdick isn't happy with the court surface there. Almost went over on an ankle. But undone by some excellent tennis from Federer, who now leads 4-3. All eyes on Tomas Berdick. See whether he can continue to hold firm on serve, as Federer has throughout the course of this deciding set so far. Subtle injection of pace from Federer there on the forehands. Enough to force Berdick to lose control of the final backhand.
15.
Oh, what a return. Federer's making his move.
I think Anagon was looking for the chip and charge there, but Fed said no. I'm just going to hit the clean winner. Sweetly struck. Like a lint chocolate ball.
Such a good return, that's because he got it nice and deep. And perhaps Berdick there ill-advised to try and be as aggressive as he was when he was on his back foot, on his weaker wing. Berdick did have those opportunities, remember, earlier in the set, those 3 break points, which he wasn't able to convert. This Federer's first chance here in the decider. First of the 3 break points, very quickly snuffed out.
15, 40, 15, 40.
And the second. Now he's got another ace up his sleeve.
It's the shot that's served him so well this week. Didn't lose serve up until the semi-final match.
Yes, he does. Phenomenal serving from Berdick.
That's the Holy Trinity right there, Chase. 3 of the most important serves
Deuce.
He's hit in this match so far, and that was big. 215. Deadly accurate.
Back to deuce. Can you believe it? And that often happens. You feel relieved once you get back to deuce. You obviously still need that edge that you feel when you break point down that forces you to bring your very best tennis. So fourth chance for Federer. Oh, can you believe that? We talked at the beginning of the match about the fact that the second serve sometimes can be his Achilles heel, but throughout the course of the first set, the second serve was incredibly good. But of course, when it really matters here in the decider, it's cost him dear.
Oh, can you believe it? I mean, you couldn't get more
5 games to
contrasting
3.
things happening in a game. Incredible. Speechless after those 3 aces.
It's a couple of times now in the match that he served at a double at break point. So here's Federer, just a decent service game away from victory.
It's good. Yeah.
The umpire thinks that it was good.
Yeah, it's catching like this, yes, you see. It's coming like this.
Just taking the back edge of the line, so that should be Federer's point. Whereas the umpire suggesting they need to replay it. I think Federer was too pleased about that.
First service.
Obviously, the call is then that the call was off-putting.
Love 15.
Interesting to see if that call proves meaningful in the outcome of this game. Of course, Federer would have been off to a good start, 15-love.
It's a risky approach shot at the best of times, but still, Berdych had a lot of work to do there. Given his forehand's just a little weaker than the backhand. Didn't panic there, the height over the net. Inch perfect in terms of target.
I just couldn't change direction there. And there he is looking down at the court surface.
It's so frustrating that, isn't it?
It is.
Feet go from under you, you can't push off.
You're stuck in cement. You're trying to get away, but you can't.
It's a high-risk strategy. Perhaps Berdych feels that he's got to go for it here.
Iguales. 30 all.
Nervous moments for nearest and dearest. Two points away now. depth and width. Have to draw the error.
30-40.
Maybe a little bit of additional tension in Federer's arm. Break point, birdie. That's a brilliant return. Just when you thought Federer held the upper hands. A fantastic game from Berdick. Keeps him in the match. We're back on serve. 5-4.
I guess, Jason, well, we saw more of a capitulation when Berdick lost his serve with the 2 double faults. In a way, that service game from Roger shows us that he's human as well. He only made 1 of 6 first serves there, so certainly is feeling the pressure, maybe not to the same extent as the Czech, but clearly evident to see.
No question about that. There's a lot on the line, of course. Not only would he become the first player ever to successfully defend his title here in Madrid, but of course he would move to number 2 in the world rankings as well, so he'll be well aware of that fact. To stand corrected there. Of course, Djokovic, the defending champion here, who was put out by Janko Tipsarevic. Federer will become the first player to win it 3 times here. But
I threw you the dummy there.
You did. That was a hospital ball. Jeez.
Well, it is Super 15 season. I thought it was appropriate.
I thought you were a teammate, buddy.
Iguales. 15.
Just a little late on that one.
At 30-15, 30-15.
That's a big serve.
Kids, 40-15.
That's a good second serve as well. So it's honours even. The tail end of the deciding set, 5 games apiece. Given all that's transpired, Robbie, which of the 2 competitors here will feel better about the current situation?
Well, I think Berdick's going to be feeling better about it. Probably feels that he would have been down and out, given how well Federer was serving up until 5-3. cruising through service games, looking good. And I also think Berdych will realise that he got a second life there on the first point at 5-3 when it should have been Fed's point. And it's obviously presuming that the linesman had got it right initially and hadn't made the call.
15-0, 15 love.
It's a nice little sneak into the net there. Hasn't done that often.
15 iguales, 15 all.
Well, as another Czech said, of course, the great Ivan Lendl, it's not how many aces you serve, it's when you serve them. Same thing can be said about when you move forward and take your opportunities at the net.
30-15. 30-15.
So much easier when you get that first serve in.
40-15, 40-15.
Oh, there it is again.
Federer.
Magical forehand from Federer. Under that much pressure to be able to create an amazing angle like that takes some doing.
Federer gana
6-5, third set.
5.
What a return there. He picked the serve, used the pace of the delivery. So never easy if you're a big guy and you're serving and the ball's coming directly at you, deep. Can't get out of the way of the ball.
He did that at exactly the same stage at the tail end of the second set when he broke Berdych.
It's so easy to do that, balls that close to the net. And we've seen that happen on numerous occasions this week. When it has clipped the top of the net, it's often gone deep of the baseline. He's got to get this up and over, so he does have to hit it with a fair amount of spin. A bunt probably wouldn't be enough. The only other option available to him is the little drop shot. But, a little heavy-handed there.
Got to give Federer credit for a very good dig. It's always about getting one more shot back in play. You never know what can happen.
That's Federer at his very best. Subtly brilliant. Such an intelligent shot that. Taking all the pace off it. And not giving Berdych any options there at all. So all at sea, even though he did manage to make the distance, still didn't have a clue what to do with that ball.
Love 40.
Here's Federer with 3 championship points.
Took a big cut at that one, did Roger.
15.
Tell you what, talk about finishing with a flourish. That would have been it.
Still championship point. It's a little tentative. Crucial that Berdych made his first serve there.
30-40. 30-40.
Needs another here. Will Federer prove to be third time lucky? Nice aggressive forehand from Berdych. So he's the big points well.
He's got to be thinking about those doubles there, hasn't he, on that second serve?
If you look at this earlier, those 2 double faults that Berdych served in order to drop serve initially. I think recovered from love 40 down. Couldn't be any tighter at the tail end of this deciding set. It's 3 match points that have come and gone for Federer.
How's that for movement from Federer there?
Ventaja Federer.
Once more, it's championship point. It's that subtle return of serve that gets the job done for Federer. A record equaling 20th ATP Masters Series 1000 title. The 4th ATP title of the season after earlier success in Rotterdam, Dubai and Indian Wells. The 74th title of his illustrious career and the 10th on this particular surface. And of course his first on the blue clay. Did it the hard way today. A winner in 3 sets. 3-6, 7-5, 7-5.
Tomas Berdych had thrown everything he had at Roger Federer, but it wasn't quite enough. Both players would build off this compelling match. Federer went on to win Wimbledon and reclaim the #1 ranking. And at the end of summer, Berdych would beat Federer in the quarterfinals of the US Open. This concludes Clay Court Classics. We hope you've enjoyed this look back at these great matches, each filled with superb movement, fantastic shot making, and that distinctive rough and tumble effort that invariably surfaces in a big way on the dirt. And as much as we've been pleased to take you back to the past, we hope you also stay with us now as we ride the road to Roland Garros. All the year's great clay court events, every day airing on Tennis Channel as the entire tennis world builds the intensity towards the grand conclusion of the clay court season at the French Open. For all of us at Tennis Channel, I'm Jessica Vickis. So long.